I want to put the video on. There we go. Hello, good evening, good afternoon, good morning. I don't think there's anything else. Good night. We could have that, I guess. It's This Week in WordPress. It's episode number 240. I can't believe I've managed to get this far. I don't think, in all honesty, anybody else can either. But here we are, surrounded by lovely people from, North America in this case. I don't know what I'm doing wrong. I can't seem to get any British people on. Oh, hang on a minute. Wait a sec. Look, there you both are. Let's introduce our guests. You can obviously see if you go round robin. We've got Rob Cairns joining us. We've also got Steve Burge, and we've also got Mark Westguard. Let me give them their proper introductions. Let's first of all start with Rob Cairns. How are you doing, Rob? How's this week been for you?
Not too bad, Nathan. Thanks for having me again.
You're really welcome. I'm struggling to find in our show notes the introduction. No, there we go. It sort of dropped towards the bottom. Here we go. Rob is the founder, CEO, chief creator of amazing ideas at Stunning Digital Media. His agency focuses on WordPress design and development, WordPress security, and email marketing. He launched his agency 14 years ago after spending 21 years in technical support in healthcare. In his spare time, Rob is an avid reader, loves sports, and enjoys spending time at Niagara Falls. When you say avid reader, what's the metric for that? Do you sort of consume books like once a week or once a month? Because I'm on a bit of a binge at the minute with books. I'm really got back into reading since Christmas.
Yeah, basically once a week. So my whole theory with books is take a half hour out of TV, watching every day, read a book instead, and you'll get through a book a week, which is about 52 books a year, give or take.
Yeah, that's great. That's about my cadence at the minute. I'm on about a book a week, and unusually for me, I've settled on sci-fi since Christmas. Before that, it was always history, non-fiction, and and found a really. Go on.
I alternate, Nathan. Sorry. So I do one business book, one pleasure book, and I kind of alternate the two. But sci-fi and history are two great subjects to read and to learn from.
I'm currently reading the Red Rising series. I'm on book 4. I don't know if you've come across that one, but it's absolutely thrilling. I'm really, really enjoying it. Anyway, we're not here to talk about that. But thank you for joining us, Rob. I really appreciate it. We're also joined, as you can see, is Mr. Westguard, Mark Westguard. Mark's Mark's biography I wrote because he didn't give me one. So it says Mark is made from AI and runs WS Form. Is there anything else I need to add to that?
There's nothing else we need to say. That's all there is to it. How are you doing, Nathan?
Yeah, good. If he glitches during this episode, it's because he's not real. You went to WordCamp Yall over the weekend.
I did.
You have a nice time.
Yeah, I did. It was fantastic. Yeah, luckily it was about a 2.5 hour drive from me, so I went straight. It was really funny. I came out of my house and I turned almost left onto the 280, and I drove along the road, and then I turned right in Birmingham, and then I was there. It was really strange.
It was made for you. Yeah.
But it was great. It was great to see. I saw Kate and Topher and Nev, who's been on the show before, and all kinds of people. So it was great to catch up.
Nice.
And see some sessions and have a.
Oh, that's lovely. I'm glad you had a nice time. I'm glad you're joining us. Thank you very much. And finally, well, not finally, but it's somebody's got to come at the end of the list, I guess. It's Steve Burge. How you doing, Steve?
Hey, Nathan.
Steve is he's one of the people behind MetaSlider, which we're going to talk about in a moment, but a whole bunch of other things. PublishPress is the most notable thing, I think, that I've come across you for. I actually use it on WP builds for all sorts of unpublished things. There's a plugin that he has which allows you to set a date in the future to turn a post which is published into draft. And I use that when sort of deals that we run on things like Black Friday, things like that, when they expire. It's ever so good, but go and check out PublishPress. The official biography reads as follows. I'm part of a team building WordPress publishing plugins with over 1 million users. They are PublishPress, MetaSlider, TaxoPress, and Logtivity. Hence the article that we're going to mention later. I didn't know about the Logtivity side of things. How are you, Steve?
Yeah, pretty good. I don't have any AI in any of our plugins yet. I need to catch up with Mark and need to get some kind of artificial intelligence in there.
Should we just kick him off the show? It's frankly, what?
I don't have anything to contribute to a chat in 2023 if I don't have any AI.
Well, we've been talking for AI for weeks and weeks. In fact, every episode we do it, and there's more coming down the road this week. But just a couple of quick things. Firstly, if you want to encourage other people to come on this show and join us in the chat, I'd really appreciate that. Go to wpbuilds.com/live, copy and paste that URL into anything you like. Hopefully some sort of social platform would be helpful, and send it out there. Get people to join us in the chat. That'd be really nice. That's probably the best way to do it. wpbuilds.com/live, and I will take it off the screen. And we've got a few people. We've got somebody called Cohen who's given us a wave. Thank you very much. I don't know that I've come across Cohen before, but nice to have you. We've got Lana. Lana's turning into a bit of a regular in the comments there. Thank you very much for joining us. She says, "Hey everyone," and we've got what is that? It says hand pink waving. I guess that's an emoji that never got parsed correctly by the platform here. But thank you for joining us, Alan. Appreciate it, Alan Fuller and Phil Levine's joining us. He says, "Good morning, everybody." Frankly, I'm shocked. We're 3 minutes into the episode and we haven't got a weather report from Peter Ingersoll. Let's hope he's all right. He says it's the first one on the list. Okay, yeah, it's not working for us, but never mind. Try another one and see if that works. We're going to talk about WordPress because that's what this really is all about. But before we do that, a couple of bits of housekeeping, if that's all right with you. This is our website, wpbuilds.com. If you go there, you can find all of the shows that we do. Basically, we do 2 things a week. We do this show, which comes out, live now, and then I repackage it as a podcast episode. Comes out tomorrow, Tuesday. And also we do the podcast with either David Wormsley and myself, or interviews. I've had both Mark and Steve onto that show before. And we are sponsored at the moment by GoDaddy Pro. They've been very, very generous, sponsored us for a really long period of time. So thumbs up and thanks to them. Really appreciate it. The other thing that I want to mention very quickly is that the Page Builder Summit is coming back. It's actually happening very soon, alarmingly soon, in fact. It's happening on the 20th of February, right through the 24th. So it's a 5-day event. As is usually the case, you can watch the presentations for 48 hours. or there's an upgrade which you can opt into as well if you wish to be able to have access to those all the time. If you go to pagebuildersummit.com, and click this button here, get your free ticket, give us your email and your name, and we will keep you updated. That would be really nice. So yeah, join us in a couple of weeks. Stick it in the diary, 20th to the 24th of February. And if you want to know what's happening, you can just sort of scroll down and see who the speakers are. It's a whole laundry list of them.
Yeah,
just here.
Great list of speakers.
Look, there's Phil Levine, and he was in the chat just moments ago. How cool is that? So yeah, come and join us. That'd be really nice. There's something for everybody, whether you're really into page builders or you like marketing or SEO or whatever it might be. There's something there for everybody. Whoa, the comments got all busy. Let's see what happened first. It's Sonny. It's Sonny. Hi there, Leia WP. Let's keep it like that. Oh, in Woking. Sonny. Oh, this is Alan. Okay, thank you, Alan. It's right. This comment is just turning into. Oh, he's here. Look, there he is. He's finally showed up, reliable as ever. Hello from Connecticut. It's 0 degrees C, 32 degrees Fahrenheit. Don't know why I find this so entertaining. I just love that he does this every week. 2 days ago, we were minus 22. Oh, minus 22 centigrade. That's horrible. Yeah,
that's harsh.
Well, yeah, that is harsh. I hope you managed to get the show. Clearly, you did. But thanks once again, Pete, for joining us and giving us the weather report. Here, it's about 8 degrees centigrade. It's very nice. I went out for a run a little bit earlier, and it was lovely. Right. Okay, let's get on with the show properly. Okay, this is the first piece. This is over on make.wordpress.org. I actually think this is a really nice piece written by Anne McCarthy because it sums up an awful lot of things which are happening in the WordPress space, some of which are very, very cool. And you never know, these might have missed you and passed you by. If you're not a Gutenberg regular and you don't install the plugin and you play and look at all the changes, quite a lot of this stuff may have passed you, but there's quite a few nice things in here. Essentially, this post is summing up some of the more, in inverted commas, important changes that are coming in the near future. And the ones that I wanted to mention relate to, the first thing is this style book. If you've not seen this before, there's an option now to essentially throw a ton of blocks on the screen, and it will show you how those blocks will look on your WordPress website. So if you make any changes, it will demonstrate what those blocks will look like. There's a little video here, and you can see here that it's showing you what all the headlines look like, what the paragraphs and pull quotes will look like. You can collapse it, as you can see on the video, and it just allows you kind of like an overview of everything that's happening on your website. And I just think that's a really, really nice idea. So that was point number one. I thought that was really cool. And the second thing, and I'm not sure if I've understood this correctly in all honesty, there's now an option to change the CSS directly in the styles interface. I think I misread this because it says on a per block basis directly from the styles interface. And so I misinterpreted that as you could globally change the CSS for a particular block. Let's say on the screen you can see the button block, and it's been fiddled with to give it rounded corners. Before it was all straight, and I thought that then meant that every button on the entire website would obey that unless otherwise specified. But I'm not sure if I've parsed that correctly. I could have got that wrong. And then there's a whole bunch of other things, design tools, and you can copy and paste styles from one block onto another. So in this example, this video here, you can see that there's 2 paragraphs, and if we just slide it forwards a little bit, the first paragraph, there's a bunch of style adding to it, background and so on, and all that's happening is they're copying and pasting. It just says paste styles, and boom, it just becomes like the other one. So that's a really nice little trick as well. They're the 3 headlines that I wanted to mention. I just thought they were really nice. You'll find this over at make.wordpress.org. It's called Core Editor Improvements, Strengthening Style Options. Right, that's enough talking from me. What do you guys think?
Well, things are happening fast with Gutenberg right now. I was writing a blog post that I think we'll come on to a little bit later, and was trying to download the latest versions of the Foresight editor and Gutenberg, and found a plugin from BPH from Bridget, Bridget Pauly Hack, who basically allows you to download the nightly versions of what they're working on and put it on your site. Last week, I did it on Monday. Okay, a couple of nice features. Did it again on Wednesday. Boom. They basically rolled in lots of those changes that you just talked about, Nathan, plus more. Things are really happening fast. I think they seem to be wanting to bring it to a conclusion. There was a post saying, hey, we're bringing the full site editing, the phase 2 sort of section of the Gutenberg project to a close. The final things are coming in quickly. Things are happening fast.
Yeah, I heard a podcast episode on the WP Briefing, which is Josepha Hayden Chomposi's podcast, and she was mentioning that. And I'm sure I had a link open before we started the show, but I can't find it now. But in it, there was information along the lines of, I don't know, let's say there were 100 things which needed to be achieved to get the full site editing finished, if you like. We'll come on to this in a minute, and most of those had been achieved. Yeah, but it is changing really quick. I think some of these things are really nice. What about you, Mark or Rob?
Yeah, I was just looking into that per block custom CSS thing you were mentioning. I put a link in the chat actually. But
great! I'll put it on.
Actually, I really like that because what you can do is they've added like a CSS box, so you can actually just type in CSS for a particular block or site wide. But the nice thing about it is you don't have to worry about. I don't believe you have to worry about the selector for that CSS. So you can literally just type in the CSS that you want for a particular block, and off it goes. So that's really cool. And that obviously makes it a lot more efficient. I know that they have done that in the past with the CSS that relates to the block itself that you haven't custom written. So I think they're just doing this more for performance, so you don't have to, but also just for convenience, really. So
on the work, so I'm looking at the GitHub post that you mentioned, and there's an image here, and obviously I haven't read it because you've just shown it to me, but it looks like it's the workflow of how you do it. So you go into the block, then you find, looks like it's the custom CSS, which is right at the bottom, and then in the implementation they've got here, they've added in. So did this materialize automatically, this WP hyphen?
I'm not sure. Okay. But maybe it did.
Yeah,
it did. But that's. I think this is like an early mock-up. This is like the beginning of the ticket. But
okay, and then there's something beneath it, and it says this could align well with how it could look for global styles.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I'm not sure if anybody's in the chat who understands whether that is global or not. That would be really interesting. Anyway, thank you for that. Yeah, it looks good. Rob, anything to add here? You're a Gutenberg user?
Oh yeah, I've been a Gutenberg user pretty well since day one. As Steve mentioned, it's coming fast and furious. What I would suggest is if anybody is not into that daily troubleshooting, maybe they don't want to run the Gutenberg plugin on their production site. I know people do. I do. I like to live a little dangerously sometimes, but if you're not into that troubleshooting, just put it on the dev site, play with it there. There's lots going on. So
there was something, Steve, you wanted to mention here in terms of images, and there's been some changes recently. Let's just put your website up because you've highlighted this in a blog post over at metaslider.com. It was
if you scroll down a little, one of the images should show what we're looking at. Yes, that one there. It seems as if they're trying to move the media manager increasingly to this left sidebar next to blocks and patterns, so that you wouldn't just have one media option, you'd have images, which if you hit images, it will access what's in your media library. And then they've also integrated something called OpenVerse, which is basically like a Creative Commons licensed stock photo directory that's actually on WordPress.org at the moment. And so you'll be able to hit media, hit OpenVerse, and then search, I think like 600 million images they have there.
It's just nuts. Sorry, go on, carry on.
Oh yeah, they picked it up from the automatic WordPress, or I think maybe Automatic picked up OpenVerse like a year or so ago, and now it's going to be fully integrated into WordPress. I think with 6.2.
Yeah.
The options here that's pretty amazing, isn't it? The idea that inside, I mean, I'm imagining most people are using images on posts and pages. Typically, posts feels like the featured image is the place where you're most wanting to do this. And for a blog post, the idea that you could get something almost immediately from, well, like you say, let's say it's 600 million, is pretty cool. You've obviously gone into the panel on the left, clicked on the Openverse option, and then looks from here as if you've typed in beach. And then how does this work? Is it so I'm seeing 3 images there. Does that just scroll and is it like an infinite scroll? You just keep going and it shows you more and more beaches?
Yeah, the same is true with your media library as well.
Yep.
I think it produces the best result, and then you keep scrolling if you don't like it, or change the search.
How do you feel about that in terms of the fact that it's one column? Because I personally always have the media library in on the grid view. I never use the list view. And I like the fact that I can see on my screen, I don't know, there's like 10 little icons, and then I can see another row of 10 and another row of 10. I kind of like that. I think I would find this UI frustrating. I think if the image that I wanted was like the 20th in my media library, I'd find this a little bit annoying to go through. So for me, at least anyway, I'd prefer like a modal which occupied most of the screen. But that's just my proclivity.
It would probably be helped with the addition of a open full media library link there somewhere.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's a good point. Yeah, you could have something in there which popped up or took you. Yeah. Okay. That's interesting. So now at least, okay, we've got blocks, patterns, and media in the left-hand sidebar, and you've got Openverse thrown in there as well. Very cool.
The idea is that you'll be able to extend this sidebar, so it'll be images, Openverse, and then maybe other plugins or maybe other WordPress integrations can add to this list.
OpenAI is going to come.
Yeah, I think the promise of Openverse is that you can basically, if an image appears there, you can be pretty certain that what you're clicking on doesn't have any license attached. I mean, maybe you do need to be a bit more thorough than just clicking willy-nilly and hoping for the best. But my understanding is that if you find something there, you are okay to use it in whatever way, shape, or form you wish. What is it? CC0? Is that the right one? I think that's the right one.
Yeah, some of them like Unsplash have slightly dodgy or slightly. It's Creative Commons-ish, but it's not quite as free as the real Creative Commons license.
Wasn't Unsplash bought by somebody as well a little while ago, and there was concern that images may have had their license amended. Yeah, maybe I'm misremembering.
You know who owns most of these now?
Getty?
No.
Oh.
And I only found this out actually by writing this blog post. Things like Pexels and Pixabay and some of the others.
Go on.
You know who owns Canva?
That's interesting.
They've been on a buying spree.
Which means Adobe.
Oh, Adobe owns Canva now?
That's correct.
Okay, so yeah, it's what we feared. Yeah. So I like this. It seems like a really nice implementation. To be honest with you, I don't really mind what the UI looks like. The fact that it is there as an option is super cool and is going to empower a ton of people who have no interest in going to these third-party sites and looking over there and then downloading it to the desktop, not loading it to the media library. Just click a button and boom. You've got it. Yeah, that's really cool. Thanks for sharing that, Steve. You can find Steve's blog post. It's called Openverse Stock Photos Are Coming to WordPress over at metaslider.com. There's a blog link at the top in the menu there. So anyway, some really nice, I think, some really nice features that are coming into the UI, especially around styles in the near future. I feel this style book is really cool. I'm really happy that that's coming soon. Okay. Let's move on, shall we? Oh, any comments coming in? Why, yeah, thank you. I'm getting endorsed for the grid view. Yeah, absolutely. Anybody using the list view ever? Bueller?
Never. No.
Bueller?
No, I use the grid view all day, every day.
Yeah, isn't it weird? Yeah. I think there's a few situations where I need to use it, like when I use a plugin called Short Pixel. And it's, Short Pixel squishes images. It makes them smaller. And I think in order to see what it's done, you need to be in list view. But I typically don't use it. So yeah.
I like to be able to see the metadata on the right hand side as well. So you can see the URL, the title, and everything else. So I wonder if that will be incorporated into that media.
Oh, so again, if I look at Steve's post,
do
you mean? Let me just put that back on the screen. So if it is on the screen. Great. If we look at this, that's a good point.
Yeah,
one of the
there's no
common
title
things that,
or I also wonder
Yeah.
if they're going to incorporate the WordPress photo directory that they've been working on as well, which is separate from the Openverse purchase.
That's right.
Made.
Yeah,
so maybe that will become another menu item.
And then while we're at it, Mark, why don't we just redesign the media library, because it's the most neglected part of WordPress, and and the least sexiest part of WordPress. So.
It's coming. It is coming.
Please.
That is mooted for the next round of WordPress. Is it? I don't know if it's 6.3 or if it's just the Gutenberg Phase 3 improvements, but I don't know what direction that's going to take. But the talks have begun, if you like.
There is a post from Matthias on the Make blog, which is called Phase 2 Finale, and it basically has 6.2 and 6.3 as wrapping up the full-site editing phase before, and then we're going to jump on to 6.4, and we might see media library improvements and other things.
Yeah, I had Matthias Steve on my podcast back in December, and he at the time indicated it would be after 6.2 that they looked at the media library. So I'm hoping to see it soon, because it just needs a refresh, like really bad.
Let's put that conversation on the shelf, because we've got a post in a minute from Joost de Volk all about the WordPress admin area and whether or not it needs a cleanup. So we'll just put that on hold. But I think you're right, Mark. One of the common uses that I have is when I put an image in, is to get the description and the alt text done. And certainly in this UI, it doesn't look. Maybe you have to insert it and then click on it again and bring up the library, which seems kind of wonky, doesn't it?
I just kind of like to see that as I'm clicking through, just to see if I'm getting the right one. But I'm really pleased to see all this styling stuff coming together in Block Editor. It's something I've been waiting for as a plugin developer, to be able to kind of latch onto a way of doing it.
Yep.
So I'm really pleased to see that the updates they're about to do. I'm excited about that.
Yeah. Got a few people who've joined us. Michelle. Hello, Michelle. She's come in by the name of Stella WP today, but she's then written, it's Michelle here. Hi, Michelle. We were talking about photos, and I know that this is Openverse we were talking about, but I know that you've been involved heavily in uploading things to the WordPress photo library. That's been amazing. And we've got Andrew Palmer joining us as well.
Mr. Palmer.
Hello, Andrew. Bertha AA has AI image search, and you can use any of the images without attribution too. Just saying. When you say that, Andrew, do you mean you can search for images that have been created by AI already, or do you mean that you can create your own images with a prompt and
I think he means creating them,
creating them, and then that's attribution free? Yeah. Okay. You can get back to us on that if you can be bothered. Let's.
Well, 5 minutes in, and we've already got the first AI shout out.
It doesn't take long.
Right back to AI again.
Just back to. Honestly, it's consuming everybody's. Oh, here, look, it didn't take him long. He is AI. That was too quick for regular humans to type. Already created, and then you can use content.
Cool.
Oh, so it's not what you thought, Mark. It's
that's cool.
So where does that silo live then, Andrew? Is there like a cluster of? Is that like a Bertha thing where you have created a silo of free to use AI created content, or is that a thing which is just out on the internet somewhere where all of the created images get put? That's curious. That's interesting. So you can search for AI created stuff. Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Andrew. Right. Let's move on. Let's turn our attention to this. All right. So Sarah Gooding writes in the Tavern, WordPress contributors work towards removing site editor beta label. Forgive me for saying beta, that's the way I do it. For 6.2, actually, the majority of us on this show today probably say it that way as well. Site editor beta label for removal for 6.2 release. And I'm not that convinced by this, in all honesty. Obviously, the beta label is just basically shouting to everybody, there be monsters. Like, use this at your own with your own discretion. And if things go wrong and behave a bit in a janky way, you knew, maybe don't have this going into production. But also, I suppose it speaks to that it's not quite got all the features yet. We still haven't got all of the things, the whiz-bang things that we wanted. And this follows a conversation that was had with Josepha Hayden Chompo C. It was on her podcast, which is called WP Briefing, where she said 99% of the features are ready for phase 2. So it looks like we're ready to rip off the bandage of beta and just have it out there in the world. Now, I'm going to throw this one to Steve initially, because Steve, by good coincidence, Steve put a tweet up this week where he said, I had an interesting experience with the new WordPress full site editing this weekend. I presume this was in response to what Josepha was saying. My 13-year-old is building a site for school and chose a theme that uses full site editing. Right? As a new user, she assumed that full site editing is where you create new content. So she built the entire site there. And then there's a further image further down where she's basically created, instead of creating posts and pages, she's created templates for everything. So Steve, just run through your daughter's errors. I don't really want to say errors because 13-year-old and she wants to use it. This is the UI that she was handed. I'm guessing you weren't standing there going, no, wait, no, click that, click. You just let her rip, right? And why did it go wrong?
Yeah, she'd been doing it as an after-school project with her friends, and then she'd brought it home after a couple of weeks of work, and she'd gone into the full site editor, and she'd seen, I think, all the content on the page. And I'm kind of backporting my ideas of how she thought about this. But she'd seen the content there, and it seemed like it was using Gutenberg, and it seemed clickable, and it seemed like you could edit content there. And she, I think, clicked around and tried to figure out how to edit the content, and she'd stumbled on templates and basically ended up creating a template for each page, almost treating it like it was Dreamweaver. Like in Dreamweaver, you'd copy the HTML from one page to the next page to the next page.
Yep.
And she'd edited the HTML, everything ended up hard-coded, and the site looked really good, but she'd made like a 40-page website, and she had 40 hard-coded pages.
Right.
And it seemed to me that there was just like missing a new post button, the ability to edit and create content inside there, because on the one hand, the full site editing is really cool and it's usable, and my 13-year-old with no WordPress experience was able to whip up a site. But it feels like you should be able to write content in there. And I think other people, some of the feedback I got on Twitter was that other people have had a similar experience. And it was, I don't know, it's not often you get to see WordPress like that from a completely fresh standpoint of someone who has no preconceptions and no experience of it coming in.
Yeah, I guess one of the great things about the block editor is that the UI is more or less the same for everything. And one of the worst things about the block editor is that the UI is basically the same for everything. It's kind of, I don't know, it just seems, if your 13-year-old daughter can sort of fall into this trap, I wonder how many other people might fall into a similar trap. But anyway, the point of this was all about, should we strip the WordPress beta label away from full site editing? And it feels like we're rushing headlong to that point. I just don't know. Let's throw it to Mark and to Rob and see what they think.
What's the rush? I mean, Gmail, which is one of the most popular email clients out there and email services out there, had the beta label. Sorry, I don't say beta, Nathan.
That's okay.
Beta label for years, and it was only removed like recently. So, I don't think there's any rush. I mean, to me, it's more important what you do with FSC or full site editing than what the label is on it. So I think we're all getting hung up on a label, and either you want to use it or you don't want to use it. You want to deal with the issues, you don't want to deal with the issues. But I don't think the label means a lot of difference at the end of the day to most developers, to be honest with you.
Yeah. Okay. Interesting. Mark, you got any thoughts on this?
Yeah, I just wonder if they're worried about the adoption of it by having the beta on there. I think it's going to be in beta for a long time. It's an evolving project. If you look at it, from a year ago to where it is now, it's come on, beautifully. But in a year's time, we're going to have a lot of changes as well. I've actually decided on one of my client projects that I'm going to try and build a block theme from ground up, and I've actually started it, and I'm already starting to see some typos and stuff in the documentation. So I really need to contribute and improve that. But I just think it needs a little bit more polishing still before we get rid of that beta label. I don't think there's any problem having that beta label there at all. It doesn't bother me.
Yeah. So, well, I guess we'll just have to wait and see. To me, if it's, by the way, Alan Fuller has sort of given a better description of what beta means. He says features may change based on feedback. And given that is definitely what we're hoping for. Yeah, exactly. Then maybe that label should stay. I guess if you're opening up a default version of WordPress for the very first time and you have never used it before, and you've downloaded it from WordPress.org, you put it somewhere, it's working, and your default experience is the 2023 theme, which then says beta next to it. Does the whole of WordPress feel like a beta product? Because this is how you edit the theme, if you like. This is how you edit your headers and your footers. It's difficult. I'm sort of torn. I think for me, the red label should stay for a little while. I don't see the rush, as Rob said, but I can see why it might. Maybe there's metrics and data about how it's causing people to be a bit alarmed and not try things out. And I don't know.
I mean, it's once you've learnt it, it's a usable system. So maybe they just want to. Yeah, I think it's more of a conception thing in terms of newer users coming to it and seeing that beta label and going, hang on a minute, why am I using beta software on? I wonder if it does that on WordPress.com if you sign up through the commercial side. I don't know,
actually. Yeah, I don't suppose many of us watching this or listening to this probably are heavy users of WordPress.com, but I don't know. But Ben is saying don't remove the beta label, and then I think that broadly seems to be the four of us seem to have that opinion. Forgive me if I've mischaracterized what you're saying. But then Courtney, hello Courtney, nice to have you with us. She says most recent post on Core makes it sound as if it's a done deal on removing beta. Yeah, this piece on the WP Tavern, which is obviously following some of that, makes that clear when they're talking about 99% of the features we considered in scope will be in Core by April. That sounds like that's going to be ticked off fairly soon. Maybe it's a bit of a storm in a teacup. And we've got Nomad Skateboarding. Anecdotally, the Reddit WordPress subs' biggest argument against Core is the beta label. Oh, yeah, you see. There you go. Interesting other side of things. And thank you, Alan. Personally, I think it should be taken off as soon as the planned additional are developed and released stable. I think it's off-putting. Yeah, I get it. I totally get it. I just, don't know.
But Nathan, we did a podcast a little while ago about Gutenberg Phase 3, right?
Yep.
And a lot of the features coming in Phase 3, such as revisions for every part of the core, comments on different parts of site editing, some of the things they're proposing are really stacking on top of the site editor experience. And so if you're developing Phase 3 on top of something which is technically beta, it's like building on a house of sand. It really would help, I think, to say, this is done, it's solid, now we can start developing more stuff on top of it. Otherwise, betas on top of betas.
It's betas all the way down. No, that's kind of that. I think you've summed that up really well, actually. If we are indeed going to move on to Phase 3, having a dirty great beta label does make it seem like you're building it on top of a house of sand. Yeah, thank you.
If you're going to say Phase 2 is done, I think as a consequence you have to take the beta label off.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Anyway, we'll see. We'll see how this transpires in the next days, weeks, or months. But thank you for sharing your story about your daughter. That gives us a real insight into what's going on. That's great. By the way, if you want to get your friends, colleagues, even enemies, who knows, in on this show, send them to wpbuilds.com/live and, tell them that there's a live show going on and it's all about WordPress. Send them to that if they're into WordPress, not like some random dude on the street. That would be slightly off-putting. We occasionally get comments in from Twitch, and it's just like, no, you're not interested in WordPress, are you? You're just randomly arrived on this channel, and here we go.
If they're interested in AI, they can join us.
Yeah. Okay, AI is fine. Yeah. Okay, let's move on a little bit. The next piece that I wanted to mention. Oh, actually, we should have. My camera is janking out. I do apologize if I'm sort of stuttering. Can I just ask you three? Is my camera behaving weirdly? Is it all right? Does it glitch or anything? No.
It just showed the logo for a second, but it's fine.
Yeah. Okay. That's great. All right. Well, in which case we'll persevere. I should probably have put this piece up, and I think who sent me to this one? Was it you just recently, Steve? Did you send me this one or no?
It was.
No? Yeah.
Yeah.
What's this one about then? This is the Matthias Ventura Phase 2 finale.
Yes, basically saying Phase 2 is coming to an end. Get ready for Phase 3.
Okay, so he's outlining all of that. I'll add that because that wasn't one that I spotted this week, and I'll add that into the show notes. Phase 2 finale, and giving you a bit of an insight into everything that's gone on. I'll read that, and maybe we can talk about that next week.
It looks like it went up Saturday morning, I think.
Yeah, February the 4th. Busy guy, I think. Yeah, whenever you see people posting on the weekend. Okay, let's change tack completely. So this is something that the Learn team would like you to participate in. It's a survey, and it's very short. It takes about, I think they say 5 to 7 minutes, and I'll just give you a little recap. So the Make WP training team individual learner survey, it says, thank you for taking the time to respond. It's going to take between 5 and 7 minutes. The training team is currently working towards updating the needs analysis for the free resources Learn WordPress. This individual user survey is the first phase in this project and will help us to continue to grow and improve the materials. If you have any questions about the survey, you can contact, and then Destiny Carno, Benjamin Evans, and Pooja Darash. I can never get that name. Darashri, sorry for butchering your name. And then click the start button and you're off to the races. Like I said, it's going to take you 5 or 7 minutes. I don't suppose any of you have got anything to say about that. I just wanted to put it on people's radars. If you are consuming these materials, then it would be very helpful if you give some feedback and let them know exactly what you think and where things should be going in the future. Couple more comments coming in. Let's just share this one. Peter says, part of the WordPress mission is democratizing publishing for everyone. I think any confusion of the platform beta, in quotes, can get in the way of that non-developer publishers. Yeah, thank you. Peaches joining us. Thank you very much. Yeah, you're welcome. Of course, Courtney. Yeah, go and share it. Courtney will be very, very pleased that you did. Go and fill out the survey. It's only going to... In fact, just do it now whilst the audio's on in the background.
Yeah.
Go to learn.wordpress.org/individual-learner-survey, or you can probably just Google individual learner survey wordpress.org and go and fill it out while we're doing this. She says it's closing soon. When does it close, Courtney? Is it in the next day or two, or have people got a little bit of time? Because I'm going to push this out tomorrow, so hopefully it'll still be open by tomorrow. Okay. Right, let's get into that subject that we were talking about earlier. We were talking about the media library, weren't we, and whether or not it was fit for purpose anymore. This is a piece from Joost de Volk, and it's over on his website, so it's joost.blog. WordPress admin UI needs to be updated. Peachy, you've joined us at just the right moment. This is really based around the fact that when Yoast version 20 came out, I'm going to say 10 days ago or something like that, they, for the first time ever, they stepped away from the, I'm going to call it brand guidelines. That's not a term really, but the WordPress way of doing things. Yoast previously had stuck to the UI that all the things in WordPress typically have. And Yoast is basically making the point, look, it's out of date. It just doesn't look up to the minute. There's loads of advancements that have happened in the past decade that people are not making use of. And so they've gone for their own skin for their plugin. So it's completely unique. It's Yoast's only, but he makes the point that a lot of other WordPress plugins have gone down this route. In fact, we've got two plugin owners on the show. We've got Mark with WS Form and Steve with Publish Press. They can tell us their experience in a moment. But because Yoast have done it, he's saying, well, maybe it's time to, maybe it's time to revisit the WordPress UI and see exactly if there's a way for it to be nicer. I joined WordPress probably about, 2014, something like that. That was when I first started using it. And at that point, I thought it was great. I really thought it was the bee's knees. But it honestly, I think apart from minor incremental changes, like there was a tiny color change that went on, but everything more or less looks the same. Doesn't really help if, I guess, plugin developers have their own unique one and everybody's, it's a bit cognitive dissonance going into a plugin and trying to figure out what's going on. His point is, wouldn't it be good to have a design system that everybody could use? And so it's modern and every plugin developer can hop in and use that instead. Go and check out Yoast version 20. You can probably see a blog post about that on the internet. And you'll get an idea for what their UI looks like, but you can see it on the screen at the moment. It is completely a departure from the WordPress inverted commas way. So, all right, let's start with Mark. Mark, what was your take on this when you started doing WS Form? Did you think I'm going to go all in WordPress way, or did you think I'm going to make my own UI?
Yeah, so I tried as much as possible to stay within the WordPress admin. There are quite a few plugins that kind of pop out, and then it's difficult to get back again. So I wanted to try and keep within that environment as much as possible. My settings page looks like the WordPress options page, for example. So I've tried to keep in with it. The problem is there's no style guide for the WordPress admin, and never has been. So there's no way for me to add a component in my plugin based upon a standard that WordPress has defined. You just basically have to look at their CSS and try and do the best you can with it. If you have a look at the private chat link I sent, Nathan.
Yeah, I'll put that on the screen. So this is this. Oh,
so they've actually made this open source. It's a library that you can use, which I think this is what WordPress needs. And so they've defined pretty much elements for everything that you would need within your UI. I think it's fantastic.
Okay, so I'll just pause and explain what's on the screen. Sorry, Mark, and I'll come right back to you. So Mark found, as I was talking, he's found the Yoast. Let me just click back and see exactly what it was called. So it's the Yoast UI library. I will put the link in the show notes, but it's ui-library.yoast.com, and there is more or less everything. Boy, this is full on, isn't it? There's everything.
It's extensive. Yeah, they've really gone to town on this. Now, whether other people will adopt this, I don't know. For me to change now would be a lot of work.
Yeah,
but I do. Yeah, I mean, some people like the different admin look within WordPress. I would like a bit more consistency. Like I said, I try to keep with that, that kind of grey standard look and feel. But in terms, for me, like dragging fields onto a form and things like that, there was just nothing there that I could use. So I had to come up with a UI that was as easy as I could make it to use. The other thing is that there are things like admin themes. I don't know if people are aware, but you can actually change the WordPress admin and install an admin theme, which actually causes a lot of problems for us as plugin developers, because it changes the size of the screen, it changes fonts, it changes the colors. So just by changing that font size, that can make buttons wrap and cause all kinds of problems. So I think eventually, if we could get to a point where there's a style guide like this for WordPress, that would be fantastic. But I can imagine, the work involved to get this done. Yoast obviously has the resource to do that. Maybe WordPress could adapt something, some of the stuff that they've done. I believe this is all React-based, which fits in nicely with Block Editor.
Yeah.
So it's impressive what they've put together. It really is.
Yeah. Well, as luck would have it, I'm actually speaking to Yoast later in this week. We're going to record a podcast episode, so this will I think this will feature heavily in our conversation. This is fabulous. I mean, I'm trying to imagine something which is missing. As I'm looking through, I'm thinking, what component is there not? And it really looks like they've tried to do almost everything. This is really great. Yeah. So thank you.
And they're really nice looking components. I mean, that to me looks a bit like Drop Zone, but they've got all the icons and everything there, and you can adjust pretty much everything you need.
Yeah, this is they're calling it file input. But badges, buttons, alerts, autocomplete, code checkbox, titles, text areas, you name it.
It's almost like a framework for WordPress admin, a bit like Bootstrap or Foundation, but they've just got everything in there.
And it's really nice as well, isn't it? It all looks really modern. So this is obviously what they're doing over on the Yoast side. Peacher made a comment. What did she say? Something about, is it on the free version?
Yeah,
where's it gone?
Is that Yoast Premium?
Where did she write that? Is that in the comments? Did I miss that?
Second comment down, I think.
Second comment down. I can't see it. Oh, yeah. Sorry, I apologize. I've scrolled off the screen. Yeah, so she says, is it Yoast Premium? I don't know. I'm imagining if they've rolled it out to premium users, they're going to have this in the free version. It would seem unusual to have it in two different states, wouldn't it? Yeah. But that's really interesting, your comment there, Mark, about the putting in an admin theme. I confess I never did that. It was always good enough for me, and I always thought that's a burden of updating and things just going wrong with that admin theme, so I never really did it. But if people choose to do that, and the buttons wrapping or something quirky like that, that's slightly
we actually have to put custom CSS in to get around a lot of that stuff, to just get our plugin looking the way it should again. They often have CSS that bleeds into what we do, so we have to counteract that.
So Peacher's asking, so essentially, Peacher, what we're looking at here is a UI library which reflects this. I would imagine everything that Yoast is talking about, which has gone into the Yoast plugin, is based upon this library that Mark has found. I'm guessing that's what it is. So I think the two sort of overlap in that way. What about you, Steve? What route did you take with your plugins?
We go with the WordPress core, but we've taken a serious look at this Yoast library. One of our goals, because we have 9 plugins with Publish Press, is that they are a little disconnected. They could probably do with a design system. And we looked at the Yoast library, and we're still considering it. The actual design of it is really, really nicely done. A couple of our CSS guys are not big fans of Tailwind, which it's built with.
Yep.
That's more of a personal preference. And a couple of them actually have been through big leaps in the past. One of them was in Joomla, and they actually integrated Bootstrap as a kind of design system because they had a similar problem over there. They lacked a kind of cohesive structure, and they went with Bootstrap, and then Bootstrap released a new version without backwards compatibility, and suddenly, boom. So they have a couple of technical qualms about this Yoast library, but the actual implementation and the level of detail and the level of quality in this is really excellent.
Yeah, it looks really. I can't believe I didn't see this. Actually, it's actually great fodder for my chat with Yoast. Thank you. That's kind of perfect. The podcast has written itself now. Yes. Okay. Nomad Skateboarding says yes. It's in the free version of Yoast as well. Yeah, I kind of feel like it honestly, if I had 100 things that I wanted WordPress to do, it's probably in the top 50 somewhere, but it's not like the admin being updated isn't like number 1 or 2 or 3 or anything like that for me. But I do
There's
feel
probably smaller wins, like hiding all the advertising notices.
Yeah.
There's probably, it would be nice. Maybe Mark had a good idea. Maybe the best approach is more clearly defining the current system rather than building a whole new one. But there's also probably some smaller wins, like having the admin notice area that could improve the admin experience without forcing a complete rewrite for admin developers.
By the way, I'm just trying to remember the name of it. Ross Wintel's tool. Have you come across WP? What's it called? WP Admin Turbo or something? Turbo Admin. WP Turbo. This is it. This is if you come across. Oh, I'm not showing the screen. This is Ross Wintel's Turbo Admin. We've mentioned it a couple of times in the past. It's actually a Chrome extension. So although I'm looking at a plugin page, I don't actually know what the plugin does. Presumably it's got the same feature set, but you can install it. If you go to the website, Google WP Turbo Admin, go to the website. It's a Chrome extension. It allows you to do all sorts of things on every WordPress admin because it's not a plugin sitting in Chrome. In my case, it does things like hide the ads automatically. It kind of figures out that's very likely an ad and sucks it into a little panel and hides it away. So yeah, little hat tip to him. I think it's like $30 or something, and I believe it's possibly lifetime. I'm not sure about that, but oh great, yeah, look, there we go. Courtney saying Ross's tool is super helpful. Yeah, let me see if I can actually find the website. I don't know if one of you guys can find it. Turbo Admin. I guess it's probably got a very sensible URL. By the way, you're looking at my shiny new search engine. I've dropped Google in favor of Neeva, which is dead cool. I can't see it. I'd say it's dead cool, and now it's not giving me what I want. It's gone for WordPress.org in every case.
Every country.
Yeah, that's right. Oh, I don't know.
I think there might be a link on the actual plugin page.
Oh, well, let me look. Let's
scroll
down. In the chat, Nathan.
Oh, thanks. There you go. Oh, it is exactly what you'd imagine. It's turbo-admin.com. Let's stick it up.
You don't need a search engine, Nathan. You can just ask ChatGPT or something.
Do you know what? I've tried to use ChatGPT a couple of times this week, and it says it's oversubscribed, and I can see that Microsoft are going to try and get their money back out of it as quickly as possible. Yeah. Here it is: turbo-admin.com, and it will consume your ads. Plus, it puts this like spotlight. If you've got a Mac, it puts this spotlight search up. And you can find almost everything on your WordPress site by clicking in here. So I don't know if you want to do posts, create a new post, it'll put everything post related. Cool. By the way, nice website, Ross. Yeah. I think that's kind of cool, really isn't it? Just using it straight away. Yeah, that's great. Okay, so it sounds like the general consensus is we need a new admin, but we're not quite sure how to do it just yet. Okay. Did you get in on that, Rob? Sorry, I don't know if we cut you out of that conversation.
No, not really, but that's okay. I tend to agree. The interface is really passé. It looks like yesterday, but the consistency for me is a big problem. So I commend both Steve and Mark for actually using the WordPress experience as much as possible, because I think end users want is consistency. So I'm also in the let's get a style guide together corner, because that would help people be consistent and basically say to them, if you want to play, you got to be consistent. So, and I also agree, let's clear up that admin notices area. That has been a sore point of mine for eons and eons. And I mean, some plugins, and Mark and Steve will get what I'm saying. It's a bit of an oxymoron, because you need to do promotion, but I don't think that's the way to do it. I mean, I know as a designer, when plugins bombard me in the admin notices area, I'll go find something else to use. And so that doesn't work for me. So let's clean that up as well.
Alan's giving us a bit of advice here. That's great. Thank you, Alan. Admin notice redesign is a project that's underway in Core. So okay, great.
Just one last point on that.
Please.
The list page you have in WordPress when you click on pages or posts.
Yep.
That is a class in WordPress that we actually use. Interestingly, in the documentation for that class, it says we're basically about to get rid of this. So please include a copy of this class in your plugin. But it's such a core part of WordPress. I'm surprised it's flagged as we're going to get rid of this. And in fact, I had when I did a security review on my plugin, that class itself was flagged as a security issue. So I actually removed it, and I'm now using the WordPress version because they still haven't got rid of it. I just don't see it going away for a long time. But yeah, so that's just another example of where we try to use as much of WordPress core as possible. We actually use their list format rather than coming up with our own list page. There's Alan saying list table. That's exactly it. But I don't see it going for a while. But
I'll just wrap up this thing about the UI here with what Joost has said, because I think this kind of sums it up perfectly. He says the following: the reason for this is simple. This being their brand new shiny new UI. WordPress admin components are old-fashioned and haven't progressed as they should. We simply can't build a modern interface with them. It saddens me enormously, though, that we've had to take this step. So it's kind of a bittersweet thought process going on there. But okay. And then Alan's come back again. Look, never will. 30,000 plugins will break, including your own, Mark. Yeah. Okay. Now I've got so many tabs open. I'm struggling to see where I'm going next. That's that one. I'm going to miss that one out. I'm going to go to this. Okay, so this is weird. This came across my radar this week, and I put it on here, but then it suddenly occurred to me I didn't really know what was going on anyway. So this is, and I always say this wrong, the W3C. I always say the WC3. I don't really know what's going on there. It says it's being relaunched as a public interest non-profit organisation. I'll just quote. The World Wide Web Consortium began the year 2023 by forming a new public interest non-profit organisation. This new entity preserves our member-driven approach, existing worldwide outreach and cooperation, while allowing for additional partners around the world beyond Europe and Asia. Now, I just assumed that's what the W3C was already, some sort of non-profit organization governing the internet and all of the, the different things which happen on the internet. But so this, how is this news? Did anybody else, can any of you sort of just correct me? Wasn't it always a non-profit, and what's changed?
I always thought it was a non-profit, and I've just brought up the wiki page just to remind myself how it works. There's 459 member organizations, obviously big companies that all contribute to it. But I didn't know why it was never a public interest non-profit in the first place. I always thought it was.
Well, there you go. I mean, because of its importance, it kind of almost like the bedrock of so much of what we do. It's really important to know this kind of stuff. But I just assumed that it was. Tim Berners-Lee, who is often noted as being sort of like the father of the hyperlink. Let's give him that. He says, "Today I am proud. I am proud of the profound impact W3C has had, its many achievements accomplished with our members and the public, and I look forward to the continued empowering advancement W3C enables as it launches its own public interest non-profit organization building on over 28 years of experience." So there we go. Maybe it's not news at all, but I was slightly confused. Steve, any insights? Rob, any insights?
Maybe it's becoming a non-profit like OpenAI.
Is that becoming a non-profit, or is it just not profitable?
No, isn't it like it's a limited profit, isn't it? I think it is
now.
Yeah.
What's that? What's a limited profit? I've never heard of that one. But
yeah, they can only profit on a certain percentage of income. The rest of it has to be churned back into the business. So I guess that protects it from just becoming a cash cow and them never developing it again. So they've got to reinvest in the company.
Okay. Yeah,
there's a spectrum, I think, where someone who is a legal scholar, a lawyer, might be able to pass them better than me. But Ghost is kind of in this space as a non-profit. All the money that Ghost makes gets cycled back into its system, apart from salaries. And then there's the non-profit benefit corporation, which is a corporation with a mission at its heart. And then there's the OpenAI limited Benefit Corporation, which I think everyone learned about as soon as it went there because no one had ever heard of it before. There's definitely a kind of increasing spectrum of organizations and companies that are perhaps a little more mission driven, a little more non-profit, but still making some money. It's requires someone who's has. You should get a lawyer on a podcast, Nathan, and try and untangle the differences between these setups.
I can't afford a lawyer for this show. Good grief. But yeah, it's just confusing to me because I just assumed that everything that it is becoming, I just assumed that was what it already was. But yeah, anyway, an important thing. In conversation with the OpenAI conversation that you were just having there, Steve, Andrew's saying they can only take profit, and the 10 billion from Microsoft has to be paid back first. Okay, that's interesting. And yeah, let's also not forget, non-profits have no salary caps. I didn't know that either. Okay, there you go. Right, let's move on. That was just a bit of an aside, really. So this one came across my radar. It's Sarah Gooding, and this is nothing really to do with WordPress. It's just curious. There's a new app out there called Engine Awesome. It allows you to essentially create your own, let's call it SaaS app. It creates things. It allows you to bind data to other data and so on and so forth. So you could create a CRM. That was one of the use cases that they had. But the reason this is of interest is because they have decided to use Gutenberg as the UI tool for their own SaaS app. And so when you log into more or less any SaaS app, you see their own UI. You know, you've got Notion open and it's Notion's UI, and you go to Gmail and it's Gmail's UI. And this is the first example, and you can see it right here on the screen. This is how you interact, and look at that. It's basically Gutenberg. And this was one of the things that Matt Mullenweg was touting right at the outset. He was hoping that Gutenberg would grow to be much, much bigger than WordPress, and indeed Gutenberg itself may become the big thing. And there doesn't seem to be too much evidence of that yet, except here we have an app called, what did I say it was called? I've forgotten already. Engine Awesome. Engine Awesome is using this to power their UI. There's a lot of technical details here, but I just think that's absolutely fascinating that they, instead of going down the route of doing it themselves, they've just, I'm going to say the word snicked, but that's entirely wrong. They've used what is free and available there. They've got a completely different database structure and all that kind of stuff going on in the background, but a lot of their UI looks completely bespoke. But the bit where you interact with things, it was curious. I watched a video on their website, and it was just like creating a post, except you were creating whatever it is that you create in their app. So there we go. Curious. And yeah, what are your thoughts on using Gutenberg outside of WordPress? I don't know if this will catch on or not.
I remember Matt talking about that at State of the Word 2 years ago, and I was up there in New York, I think it was. And I remember there was a contributor there who asked a question about, you know, if I'm putting my time in to WordPress, developing Gutenberg, is it right that should then go off and be used or licensed elsewhere? So I forget what Matt's response was to it, but it's interesting to see it starting to happen. I'd be interested to know how that actually works, how you pull it into a third-party platform, but that's quite clever.
I remember seeing like just the idea that, you know, mobile phone apps might start using it and things like that, because what's the point in building your own UI? I don't know. When I look at it like that in the context of a SaaS app, that seems really at odds with that. So on the screen, we're looking at a part of their UI where you, in effect, you're creating like custom post types. Imagine it like that. And you've got what looks like the Yoast UI that we had a minute ago. It's got that same sort of look and feel to it. And then you drop into that, and it suddenly looks very different again. So I don't know. I wonder what will happen there.
I guess the ultimate output from it is HTML with markup in it. For adding blocks. So I guess they're ultimately using that part of the system.
I can imagine SaaS app developers not really wanting to look the same as everybody else, though, right? Isn't that one of the things when you build an app? You want it to look different and look a bit cool and not look exactly like your rivals are doing. So yeah, we'll see. Let's be fascinated to see. There's a few comments coming in, but I think they're about the article that we had. Alan Fuller saying there was a big push to put Gutenberg into the WP.org support forums. Whilst you may think it all WP, it is not when you think about it. Yeah. I don't know. This just struck me as quite interesting because it was the first implementation that I had. I've reached out to the guys behind Engine Awesome to see if they want to come on a chat on a podcast and exactly what their thinking was around that. So yeah,
be interesting.
Yeah, indeed. Okay. Anything, Steve? Anything, Rob? If not, we'll move on.
Yeah, you know what? When we did our conversation about Gutenberg Phase 3, I said that I got most of the information I could find about Phase 3 from a repo on Automatic. Automatic has I'm trying to find it now. I'm frantically typing in the background.
That's okay.
But there is a repo on Automatic's GitHub, which is entirely focused on this, and it has some issues and some details on integration with, say, the WordPress app, with Tumblr, with a variety of different use cases for Gutenberg outside of WordPress itself. And I'll tell you, I'll try and grab it later.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah,
so you can put it in the show notes.
I'll stick it in the show notes. Yeah, I think Tumblr isn't the intention for Tumblr to adopt the block editor as well. Yeah.
No question, Nathan. But Tumblr's owned by Automatic.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But going back to what Mark was talking about Matt's conversation at State of the Word 2 years ago, he actually envisioned, and I remember hearing Matt talk about it either at State of the Word or on a podcast, I can't remember where, and he said he thought Gutenberg would be adopted across the open source industry. So he's envisioned that. So I'm not surprised it's gone this way. Be honest with
you. I thank you, Steve. You found it. It's called the Isolated Block Editor, and it's a GitHub repo. It's one of Automatic's projects, and you'll find it at github.com/automatic with 2 T's /isolated-block-editor, and I'll stick it in the show notes. Yeah, interesting. It's not exactly had rockets underneath it though, has it? Given that we're several years in, this is the first implementation that I know of it, at least anyway. I imagine there was hope that it would be adopted more widely and quickly than that, but let's see. I'll chat with the guys and see what their experience has been like. Right, now, this is the difficult thing. I've now got to see where I am with my tabs. Oh, yeah, sorry. A little bit of self-promotion. Well, not really. More about Robert Rowley than me. But I did a podcast episode with Robert Rowley from PatchStack. And we recorded the conversation in January. We'd agreed to have the podcast in, I think, something like mid-November. We thought we'd get on a podcast and chat about internet security, WordPress specifically. But then more or less all the podcast episode got hijacked by what happened over at LastPass. And I just want to get into that a little bit, if that's okay. Anyway, it's podcast episode number 61 on the WP Tavern website. There's a link at the top of the page, wptavern.com/podcast. Look for episode 61. It's in there. I don't know if you guys use a password manager, if your life has been turned into turmoil ever since LastPass, but I've had to spend quite a long time changing things, and I'm still not through it. Bit of backstory: if you've got a LastPass account, your data as of let's say at some point last year, it was nicked, and it's encrypted. So depending on the strength of your password, it's encrypted against brute force attack as a function of time against how difficult your how difficult your password was. So if your password was, I don't know, trifle, give up. It's all gone. But if your password was a load of pseudo-random noise, you've probably got a couple of centuries with the current state of technology. But it really did throw me to a loop because I I totally bought into the whole dream of it. I thought this data was immutable. I thought it was, nothing. So I've thrown everything in there. I got passwords, social security details, all of that's in there. And I'm now sort of dreading that, because whilst I can go and change my, I can change the website for all the properties that I'm on. It's a bit harder to change my national insurance number. And I'm not going to change my bank, but some of the banking details ended it up in there. And so I don't know. I just wonder if some aspect of the internet broke for me when that news came out. Some trust that I had that technology could store this stuff safely. I don't know. I'm going to throw that open. Discuss.
Can I jump in there? So the first thing is kudos to Robert having a conversation with you. People need to listen to him. That's the first thing. The second thing is, as somebody who spends a lot of time in the security space locking down websites, I have already dubbed 2023 the year of the vulnerability. So in Canada and US, we've seen at least 6 or 7 major corporations that have been, including 2 hospitals in the Toronto area, that have been hacked in the last month and a half. And we're only at February 6th or something. So, I mean, we got to keep that in mind. So what it tells me is if the big companies are having problems, the small users of the WordPress websites need to start getting real about this stuff. Now, one of the tips, I had a conversation with Kathy Zan, who's one of your co-hosts, and I actually shared the tip in episode 298 of my podcast, if anybody wants to go listen to it. And Kathy had picked this tip up off of somebody else, and it basically means you put your passwords in the password manager, and at the end of every password, you have a common word or phrase that only you know that you don't store in your password manager. So, for example, if your password is ABCD and your phrase is coffee 1 2 3 4 pound, you don't put the coffee 1 2 3 4 pound in the password manager, and you append that to every password. So that inherently makes your password manager more secure. Now, the other problem is, to beat on LastPass, the biggest problem there is they have changed management structures 5 times in the last 2 years. So they were originally on their own, then they were bought by LogMeIn, then they were spun off, and then they were sold to an equity firm, and it goes on. So when you were in the security space and you're spun off 5 times, how do you have any continuity on what you're doing?
Yeah.
And personally, I hate to say this company, I think they're finished, they're done. It's just a question of when. So if you haven't moved, now's the time to move. But here's the other problem. If you've got passwords in that vault, and Robert would tell you the same thing, you need to change all those passwords now. And that's the biggest thing. So what I think you need to do as an end user is be aware of what's going on out there. And this should be a lesson for site owners, because, again, if big companies are getting hacked and you're not doing the right things, you're going to get hacked too. And that means having backups, and backups that you've tested that can be restored. Because if you can't restore a backup, your backup is utterly useless too. So do the testing before you get to that point. And that's my 2 cents worth.
I think one of the things which shook me a little bit was also the lack of communication from LastPass. They were very, very good at not telling anybody that this had really, it was sort of couched in a blog article, but you had to read between the lines a little bit. But also, it seems that the implementation that a lot of people had, well, not a lot of people, I think it's a small subset of their users, but the number of hash cycles that was applied was very low in some cases. In my case, one. There were several people
if you were an original
so basically, forget it, give it up. It's in my case, it was their recommendation of 100,001, but even that falls well below the 350,000 that is recommended by, I forget who recommends it, but anyway, so it was all of that. Yeah, it was all of that lack of communication, the fact that they're just sort of carrying on as normal. You don't see any evidence on it on their website. And I think a bit like you, Rob, I think maybe they'll be finished by some sort of class action lawsuit. as soon as somebody can definitely say, look, my whole identity has been hijacked, and it's as a result of stuff that was in LastPass. I like your idea.
They dropped this 2 days before Christmas, just to try and say, hey, we dropped it, and they tried to hide in amongst the Christmas season. I mean, they had been lying, and I'll use the word lying because that's my opinion, folks, so don't sue me, but I think they've been lying to their public for months. I mean, this got worse and worse as it went, deception, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
And security is all about trust. And how do you trust a company that's not upfront?
Well, I've given up on them. I have an account, so I'm going to wait until that, till the subscription on that runs out, because I don't see why not. But I've my personal decision. I've carried on using an online password manager. So Cohen, who's in the comments, said he always thought the concept of an online password manager was a bit of a recipe for disaster. Do you know what? Like 6 weeks ago, I would have said no, it's fine, and now I'll eat that humble pie, Cohen. I think you. There's maybe some wisdom in what you're saying. That seems like sage advice now. But Mark and Steve, you got anything in there?
Go ahead, Rob.
Sorry, Rob.
Sorry, I just want to add 2 quick things, and then I'll turn it over. One is make sure you turn 2FA on, but that's not secure because Facebook has problems with 2FA right now. But do that, and then start changing your use passwords on a regular basis. Stuff you use all the time. Sorry, Mark, go ahead.
Nathan, was your identity stolen when Michelle came on looking like you?
Now, yes.
Was it around that time?
That was crazy. Now that you say it, she was clearly part of the LastPass breach.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. My thought is, I'm with Cohen. I've never had trust in these online password storage things. I think if you've got a database with 1,000 passwords in it, those passwords are then only as good as the password.
I know.
Protecting that. I still use a very old piece of software on my computer called M-Secure. It's not even the latest version because I don't even like the new version, but it just sits on my computer. I have a backup of it, and it doesn't go online anywhere. It doesn't leave the office, and I just prefer it that way. I think these passwords storage mechanisms, they bring a great deal of convenience.
Yeah.
You can get to it on your phone and on every computer, and everything's synced up and it's all nice. But when I've got 1,600 passwords for my client base, and if that suddenly got released, my business would shut down. It would be a disaster, and it's not worth it to me to have that convenience. So I'm still a little bit old school when it comes to passwords.
So so let's say that you're out of town, like you were at WordCamp Yule, and you suddenly need to log into something. I don't know, you've got logged out on your iPhone or something. Do you just wait until you go home, or is there a mechanism for?
No, well, I've got it on my laptop. So
your laptop comes with you. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, if
so everybody next time you see Mark, just nick his laptop.
Nick my laptop. Yeah. I mean that is password protected, obviously, on the machine itself. Getting into it and getting into the password thing. It's only so much you can do, really. But I just prefer having that in my realm than it being out there in the cloud somewhere.
Here's an interesting one, because I've ended up going to Bitwarden, which is another alternative, right? So basically, what I've done is I've just imagined that whole problem never existed, but another service will fix it. I don't see that there's a great deal of difference, except there's a couple of little nuanced bits. But there is one product called 1Password, and 1Password has to be seeded by something. Only well, in theory, don't go writing it on a tattoo on your forearm or anything like that. But you can give it a seed, and if somebody steals the data, it's not just the password. You need to have this other thing. So if they get your password, if they hash that, it's useless because they can't do anything with it. So in other words, it's almost like 2FA for the vault. So that seemed quite appealing. But the more I think about it, the more I should just have something like you, Mark. Just have it on a laptop and carry the laptop
old
around.
School works better for me. I think Rob will be able to talk to this, but wasn't there just some aspects of LastPass that just were not encrypted at all? They just left them as plain text in their database.
There were fields. It was fields. But those fields are so oh my Lord. like password, like the email address and the URL, things like that.
Yeah.
So it's just
ludicrous. Absolutely ludicrous.
Check this out. Somebody went onto ChatGPT and said, so you can download that blob of data, right? You can download your LastPass Vault. Somebody went onto ChatGPT and wrote a Windows PowerShell app to show all of the fields in plain text, and literally went to ChatGPT and said, write me a PowerShell script to expose all of the fields in a LastPass. But more than that, right? It just said that to it, and it worked. And then it said, and we need a UI for it. Can you make it so that it's got some kind of UI? And it did that as well.
Steve Gibson talked about that, Nathan, in one of his podcasts.
That was where I got it from. It was on Security Now. Yeah, that's right. So... Mission target Mark's laptop.
I'm going to hold on to it at WP Asia. I'm not going to let anyone near me.
Password feels ripe for picking. Yeah, honestly, you imagine, like, that's got to be one of the that dump of data, that however many petabytes of data that was. Can you imagine what goodness is in there? What stuff could be taken out of that? People are going to throw millions of dollars at GPUs to get that stuff decrypted, because
it's like mining Bitcoin.
Steve, I know that we're running out of time very quickly, so if you've got any thoughts on that, shout them out. If not, we'll go and just move on to the last couple of things.
Hey, not my area of expertise. I'll leave that to Rob.
Okay, thank you. Right, we'll just very, very quickly go to this last couple of things. I'm going to just mention this. A nice article on WP Tavern about Adam Silverstein, who is a WordPress core committer. He's talking about whether we should have automated performance monitoring for WordPress core. So I'll just mention that. Go and read it. AI has been thrown into SEO Press. So in much the same way that with Mark's WS form, you can pre-fill certain fields, like, I don't know, a text area. You can pre-fill that with certain text and things like that. Have I got that right, Mark? Is it that kind of,
Yeah.
The
you can now do completion out.
Yeah, thank you. You can now do that with SEO Press's, for example, meta descriptions and things like that. It will pre-populate. I don't know how it works. I don't know if it goes and scrapes your content.
I had a quick look at it, and I think what you can do is you can choose a post, and then you, from the bulk edit menu, you can say, create me an SEO title and description from the content, and it'll read the content in and build those out for you. Within there are software.
Sounds like a really heavy, expensive, but I guess there's no way of going around it in any other way if you've got to read the article. Okay. Anyway, it's a nice update. If you've got SEO Press 6.3 throws that in. What you've got to do is you've got to, like in WS Form, you've got to link it with your API token so that when your $18 worth of free OpenAI stuff is expired, you can start paying for it, because it's not free. And Microsoft need to get their 10 million back as quickly as possible.
Yeah,
plus, speaking of money,
10 billion.
Yeah, 10 billion. Sorry, 20 quid. Ben's offering, and a bag of scampi if you can nick Mark's laptop. It didn't last long. He's already halved his offer.
He's gone down to £10 now.
£10 and some ball bearings. Why the ball bearings? What do you want those for? Final offer.
Show title: How do we hack Mark's laptop?
Okay.
It's a challenge now.
That's going in. Okay, let me just write that down. How do we hack Mark's laptop? Right, got it. That's going to be.
I'm going off the grid.
Again.
I'm going off the grid. That's I'm going to disconnect my Ethernet cable.
Again. Final offer, £10, says Ben, and he also says that he's tried out the SEO Press stuff and it works super cool. Okay, great. I've got SEO Press, so I might try that. Last couple, very quickly, go to ChatGPT and experiment with it. It's brilliant. It's what the internet was invented for. If you thought pictures of cats was fun, this is more fun. And just type in the word meow, because that'll give you a nice response. And honestly, I don't want to hold you guys for too long, but we'll make this the last one. Everybody's concerned that AI is starting to really cause a few problems. Let's say in the example that a lot of teachers in America, in this case, are complaining that their students, so we're talking like children as opposed to university, older people, they're now submitting work which has been written by AI. I don't know quite how they figured out that it was written by AI, possibly because it was like 1,000 times better than some children were expected
no errors.
to. Yeah, that's right, no errors. And so this is a problem, right? Nobody wants children getting certificates for things that they didn't deserve. That's not really a great incentive for anybody. But so what's happened is OpenAI have can't make this up. OpenAI have released their own tool to spot when OpenAI has created something, and guess how well it works. Here's how well it works. It can identify a mere 26% of stuff that it wrote, and it incorrectly 9% of the time, so call it 10, shall we? 10% of the time, it's a false positive. So something that a child sat and diligently wrote, 1 in 10 of them is getting told, no, it's an AI wrote that. Can you? This is chaos. This is absolute chaos. And you talked a minute ago, Rob, about trust, right? Trust is the bedrock of all of it. This is the stuff of exams, isn't it? If there's no trust that children have submitted work, where are we? I don't know what we do.
Like we said last week, Nathan, that we're probably going to have to put cameras on our children actually doing their work as evidence they've done it. You know, like a driving cam.
It's getting that bad, yeah.
Well, in the UK, like when I was a child, there was this move away from like final exams to coursework. So I did these things called GCSEs. Prior to that, there were these exams called O-levels, and O-levels was all exam. So you when you got to 16, everything was exams. They moved it so that a burden of it was taken and it was coursework. I imagine it'll flip the other way now. I imagine we're going to have to get to the point where it is exam conditions for almost everything because, I don't know. Yeah. Anyway, there you go. I think that's all I've got. Is it all I've got? Was there anything else? No, that's it. I think I've got it. Right. Last little thing, just very quickly. No, not the wave. It's the new thing on the show. What's what is it? What is a Bob Nathan? The reason this has come about, right, is because I got a new shelf. And there was just two. That shelf was just right there. I thought, what the heck can I do with that? So here we go. I'm just going to. I can't make myself bigger. Can I make myself bigger? Yeah, there you go. What is that? What is a Bob Nathan? What
is that? An old flip phone? Is it an old phone?
No. Good guess. Okay. Good guess.
Is it a pipe?
It's not a pipe. Case? No, it's not a pipe.
Is it food?
It's not food.
Okay.
I'll give one more guess.
Earbuds or something like that?
No, I'm gonna say this word and see if it helps you. I'm gonna say the word Victorinox.
Oh, a Swiss Army knife.
It's a Swiss Army knife. There you go. That was lovely shelf work, says Ben. Thank you very much. It is a Swiss Army knife. That's the great bit for this show. Right, let's do the humiliating bit then. We've all got a wave. Give us a wave. Give us a wave. Thank you. Sincere thanks to Rob, to Mark, and to Steve. I really appreciate it. The show will be coming out as a podcast episode. I hope you all come back on another show. Thank you for all of the comments that came in. I'm really appreciative of that as well. That's really great. It makes the whole thing, I nearly said seem worthwhile. Makes the whole thing worthwhile. I meant to say worthwhile, but seems came out in my head. It makes the whole thing worthwhile. I really appreciate it. We will see you next week. Go and sign up for the Page Builder Summit while you're at it. Ta-da! See you later.